Afternoon all. I've met some of you. Thank you for the opportunity. Thanks, Richard and Gerard. So we were the company that developed the game meat strategy. Sadly, and I'm saying this up front, just a portion of the strategy was published, which left a void in interpretation. I think you made some comments to it. So the real what and how to execute was not in the document. And I'm really sad about that. We also addressed it with the department and said, so from that perspective, what are you going to do to inform the people? What do we plan to do? Because currently what's on paper does not project the execution bit. So from that perspective, it is what it is. I can't really fix it. So just from that perspective, just want to say we had extensive stakeholder engagement. We met with over 250 people in a span of about 6 months. A lot of the people here, Andrew, John, a lot of the WRSA team or head office people, we tried to make it as inclusive as possible. It was quite tough. It's a difficult industry. But I'm a Buddha girl, so I come from a farm. My dad still farms. My son-in-law is an avid hunter, so we understand this game. Just to say also that this was a public tender. At the FASA conference, I was actually attacked and said, I'm the one that will bring this industry down. So just to say it was a public tender, we got it on the basis of experience. I've developed various national strategies in this space. So from that perspective, just to say where we're coming from. So just to say, well, from a status quo perspective, what did we do? We first looked at the data. There's a major void in data. We don't have loads of information. We've got a little bit of information on the international market, but very little trade flows in terms of what happens in the informal game meat market. So that was quite challenging. We also did the normal value chain analysis, barriers to entries, etc., etc. Then we looked at what is the SWOT analysis on a production side, on the processing of meat side, as well as commercialization. And then we went forward and we also looked at the types of risks. We also did a number of analysis, but this is just on international trade data. So who are those big players? So from import trade value was Germany, the Netherlands, and the UK, the biggest. And then and that's in value. And on the right-hand side, sorry, there is actually a pointer. On the right-hand side, you'll see there the Netherlands is the biggest exporter, but I assume it's because of Schiphol. That's like the entry point. And then from there, the meat flows out. And then Brazil and also Thailand. So we really went into data that we got from Comstrade, the FAO, as well as from SARS. We also looked at South African data that's been published by Dollard, just to say, well, so what happens here in terms of the game species, what is available, the game per province, and then also the ostriches on the right-hand side. So we really try to make some sense of the data because it's so difficult when you need to devise a strategy, but you don't know how big is this pie. What is the actual number of animals in the country? What is the potential offtake that you can have? And that data is just not available. There's pockets of data available. So to those that actually do offer those, thank you. But there's not a holistic system to say, well, in South Africa, we hunt or cull whichever, or harvest, whichever method is applied, X number of impala or springbok or whatever the species is. On this slide, the core message is just to say on the right-hand side here, what happened prior to FMD, the FMD ban in 2011. Look at the decline in exports. So from an export perspective, it's quite hectic. I don't know if you can see. So 2011 was extremely low. It was below 200,000 tons. So it's a hectic decline. I think kilograms, sorry. On this slide, I just want to say, so from the export side, what we found in the data from the three sources was that processed meat was mostly exported, and then fresh meat was only about 36% of the total exported. But I mean, it's obvious because of the shelf length of certain products. We also did a comprehensive value chain analysis, and here we looked at who's involved, what are those secondary activities, as well as the governance. And on governance, we all know that there's mixed lines. It came out also in the feedback that we received from WRSA, who is the real person that should actually, whose mandate is it? And we know that that is quite a problem. And here at the bottom, we looked at all the legislations that actually governs the industry. It's hectic. So I think for you as a farmer, you say, oh, yeah, this is really, it becomes really difficult to actually do this. I wanted to use some Afrikaans, but I thought, no, let's not. So what we've also done is we try to estimate, so who eats what? And from this is just, well, it's say that most people eat starch, 41% of a daily meal, 20% meat, which is chicken. And then, but nowhere in any data was there really game meat. There was only data we could find was a 0.7% of people that showed or stated that they actually do eat game meat. But it's also because of the fact that we don't have a data set to work from and say, well, yes, it could be more. So this is, I think the biggest lesson learned here is the lack of data to inform decision making, and to also say, well, so if you go to a Woolworths or a Pick and Pay or Checkers, and Woolworths actually said, can't you just supply on a continuous basis, even if it's species in different stages throughout the years? And we can't because of the lack of data, and then also the lack of certification. So from that perspective, this is just also going on to say the key lesson learned is we don't have data, because if we look at the data from the 0.7%, it actually says that only 4.577 tons of meat, of game meat, is actually used in South Africa, which we don't know. There's no set data to actually confirm that. Then this slide is just, you know, we've had many interactions, and everyone said there's never an issue with any carcass. And this just to show, guys, meat safety is everyone's concern. If something is wrong with the meat, please don't put it in the market. So that's just the only comment I have to make here. Sorry, that was just on that. And interestingly, this was one outfitter that had hunts in the Waterberg. And from every 10 carcasses, 3 actually had measles or hondelintworm. So we must just think of, you know, to cut it out is one thing. Is it the right thing? I don't know, but just be conscious of if you put it in a formal market, that you do not do this. So when we devised the strategy, we looked at various business models. We looked at the trophy hunting side, we looked at the subsistence hunting, or the typical biltong hunter, as well as the commercial hunters. This is like Game SA, the big exporters, etc. So we've looked at the meat flow. So what happens? Does it go to the formal process? Formal process, I mean, you've got a rural throughput abattoir on farm, or you send it to another abattoir, or you send it through a butchery, which is now allowed, which was, I think, a year ago, quite a big issue. So we looked at all of these components. We also investigated, so what can happen on a mixed farming system? How does the meat flow work on that farm? It's almost the same. It's just they've got other commodities or other products that they also produce. And then, yeah, this slide got me in loads of trouble in the past, because people interpreted the fact that I said the industry is fragmented as I mean that they don't work together. What we meant with that is ranging from non-integration between government departments, which we know is a fact, as well as other governance structures, such as industry associations across the game meat value chain. So this is what was meant in the document. It was actually stated as such, but certain people just took certain words and crucified me for that. So from the regulatory environment perspective, it is complex. There's various things that you need to look after and conform to. And what we've also seen is certain regulations is not really the best, but they said they will look at it. Whether it will happen, I don't know. But there were loads of discussions with Dr. Meyer and also with Paul. Then from there, we said, well, from a strategic perspective, we think that it's necessary to increase compliance, specifically related to meat safety. As I said earlier, meat safety should be everyone's concern. And then secondly, specifically for a consumer-focused retail market, because currently most of the meat flows into the informal market, or they go to a butchery and it flows into the chain, but we don't know where that meat comes from, or we don't know whether there was an inspector at been felt. We don't even know if it went through all of those procedures that's been promulgated or put forward by the game meat regulations. So we also spoke about an incentive for game ranchers to convert to a more commercialized approach. So yes, most of you are big farmers, you do a lot of good work, but the key message is let's pull a bit together and see if we can't have better initiatives. From that perspective, and this was done with industry associations and various other people, is we said the vision will be to have a formalized, thriving and transformed game meat industry in South Africa that contributes to food security and sustainable economic growth. So that was the core message that came out of the game meat strategy. So this is an interesting one. This was our submission, and we looked at 8 strategic themes. The first was to create an enabling environment. You all know the issues with the permits to hunt and all those issues you have. Secondly, to have a governance structure that actually works for the farmer and for the market. Thirdly, to have that market intelligence, understanding the size, scale, and performance of the sector. Fourthly, supply, demand, and consumption. Then we looked at some innovative research, innovation, research and development, transformation and inclusive participation, skills, knowledge, and sector awareness, and then marketing, branding, selling, and communications. But interestingly, when the document was published, we found out that there were 2 new strategic themes that's been added that actually was in direct contradiction to the white paper on sustainable use. So this is just an interesting dynamic that happened. So I'm not going to go through everything, but I just want to go through the interventions that you understand what the what and the how and what could actually change the sector. So the intervention 1 is to align the mandates of all the departments and have the right department do it, because currently in an abattoir, you've got 3 departments that actually rule that. So it's difficult. For you as a farmer, you've got meat, you want to take it out, but there's so many compliance aspects that you need to look at. Then secondly, we've asked for draft game meat regulations clarification workshops. We actually had Dr. Johan Mens part of our group, and he gave fruitful feedback every time and explained certain things. You know, what does the anti-mortem inspection mean? It doesn't mean that you need to go and have it there and look at everything, but if you can see there's a lump somewhere, you know, just think of it. Don't necessarily put that meat in the chain if it doesn't look good when you actually do the evisceration, etc. Then we also asked for a review of the game meat regulation as and when needed. We know there's a big issue about the number of animals that you can hunt for the biltongjachter. And from that perspective, it's been on the table. We don't know what's going to happen with it. But I've had a meeting with the department on Monday. It was at very short notice, and I've actually addressed the DDG and 40 directors. And they've asked me to be on the task team, the habit task team internally, but as the people that developed this and spoke to industry to actually help them to sift through the feedback that were provided from industry. And then fourthly is to develop industry standards for game meat to ensure product safety and quality. It comes back to meat safety is everyone's concern. then a refined and improved permitting and licensing system, and then to regain SAFMD, to regain FMD free status. We know this project can't fix it, but in areas where there is no FMD, is it not possible to look at it, to say, well, there's meat that you can actually use? Ooh, what happened now? Sorry, switched off. Then the second one is on the governance side. We said establish a game meat desk so that there's one place that anyone can go to, whether it's from permitting through to things that happen in the value chain. And then secondly, we also proposed to establish a game meat industry board of South Africa. So the discussion we had on Monday is, can't this fall in with the certification scheme project that we're currently busy with? And I think it's totally possible. Then we also spoke about the feasibility and funding models and development and management of incentive schemes, but that is the other project that I'll speak to you just now. This was a proposal, but then let's go to market intelligence. Everything here is understanding what can work, how it looks like, what's the size and scale. Can we incorporate all the data that we get? Do you actually report on all the animals that you shoot on farm, etc.? How much kilograms of meat do you produce? What species is it? Do you actually have that traceability, etc.? So all of this will just inform better decision making. This is just a quick overview of the number of registered abattoirs. There's about 65 for game, 6 for ostrich, and 5 for crocodiles, of which 20 RTAs in South Africa, and then 22 infrequent slaughtering low throughput abattoirs. Interestingly, in the Free State, there's absolutely zero, but I assume there's certain, I don't know, maybe butcheries that has this. So based on Dollard's data, there's zero game meat abattoir. It was quite interesting for us because we thought it's a hunting destination, so it should have those things in place. Then the next one spoke about the supply, demand, and consumption. So we're trying to put a product together, but we don't know what is supply because we don't know how many animals can we actually offtake per annum. Secondly, we don't know what is the demand. How many people actually do eat game meat? And then from a consumption perspective, what is the actual kilograms being eaten every day? And this whole strategic objectives just speaks about that. So if we knew all of this, it would have been quite easy to devise a strategy and say, well, the growth could be X percentage, but we don't have that data and information. Then on number 5, we looked at the feasibility to construct and institute rules throughput abattoirs, or alternatively, sorry, I didn't put it in here, is to also use the capacity available at other abattoirs because it's still meat. There's just certain different rules that needs to be applied, but you can do it. And then to look at the traceability system, that's to say, well, from farm to fork, what are those, where does it come from? Who, what did it go through the formal process, etc., or not? And then look at peripheral technologies. Like, for instance, a mobile abattoir, I don't think it will work personally, but there's many people that was of the opinion that it will work. If you think of it logically, in a hunting or on a farm with slopes, how will you do that? But there are other places where it actually do work. So yes, it can, but it's got limitations. Then transformation, we spoke here of 2 components. Yes, there's the fact that we need to transform the sector in terms of having more representativity in the sector. But then secondly, also to transform the sector, it's mostly informal. So how can we formalize it? So what can we change and say, well, we do need to have certain structures or standards in place to ensure that there's growth in the sector. So we looked at various activities and say, well, how can this work going forward? Then just on skills, knowledge and education, and I think there's quite a gap here, maybe not for the farmer or the rancher, but for specifically from a consumer side, and then also people in the middle. So all these value chain actors to ensure that everyone knows that meat integrity, safety and quality is prudent and extremely necessary for consumption, specifically when you take it to the formal retail market, not necessarily the informal market, because you also want to produce meat for your family, etc. So this is an opportunity that came, Anki actually sent it to me, and I thought this is quite interesting that now, of all times, there's Ontbyt Sake on channel 144 approached them and said, don't you want to do something on game meat? So if there's anyone in this room that's maybe interested, please let Anki know. There's various options. I've just taken the most expensive one. That's quite cheeky, but sorry for that. Have a look at this. And if you want to, it could be your farm, or it could be WRSA, or it could be Bona Bona with their chef on the farm. I don't know. I don't know who's interested, so just let Anki know. So this is a bit of free advertising, Anki. So from a marketing, branding, and communications perspective, we said there need to be more like a more centralized plan to say, how can we take game meat to the market? First of all, you need to educate your consumer. They don't all understand the value of game meat and the health benefits. So how can you take that and translate it and say, well, start eating game meat because it's got various advantages. We spoke at an event in Soweto on the 13th of August, and there it was quite interesting how the local people in Soweto started. So well, they are converting from normal beef or chicken or whatever they ate to game meat because of the health benefits, specifically for diabetes. So it was quite interesting that if you can make an impact in Soweto, I'm sure we can make an impact in South Africa. So the bigger forum. And that's it from game meat. I assume there's many questions.